The cemetery was silent, the kind of silence that felt like the world itself was holding its breath. Rain drizzled softly on polished marble. Richard Langford, a self-made millionaire, stood before his son's grave, eyes hollow, heart heavier than the sky above him. He had everything a man could want, a mansion, cars, fame, power, but not peace. It had been 5 years since his only son, Michael, had died in a car crash. 5 years of guilt, because they hadn't spoken for months before the accident. Every Sunday, Richard visited the same grave. Placed the same bouquet. Whispered the same apology. "I'm sorry, son. I wasn't the father you needed." But this Sunday, something was different. Across the graveyard, he saw a young black woman kneeling by the same tombstone, a little girl beside her, barely 5 years old, holding a single white lily. They were crying. Richard froze. He'd never seen them before. When the woman noticed him, she quickly wiped her tears and stood up. I'm sorry, sir. We'll leave." But Richard stepped closer, confused. "You knew my son?" The woman hesitated. Then, softly, "Yes, sir. Michael was my best friend. And this is Lily." The little girl peeked out from behind her mother's coat. Richard's gaze softened. She had his son's blue eyes. He frowned. She has Michael's eyes." The woman's lips trembled. "Because she's his daughter." The world around him spun. Rain blurred his vision. "His daughter." She nodded, tears streaming down. "We never told anyone. Michael wanted to, but he was scared of what you'd think." Richard staggered back. The truth hit like thunder. His son, the one he'd fought with over ruining the family name, over hanging around the wrong people, had been in love. And now, standing before him, was the only piece of his son left alive. Days turned into weeks. Richard couldn't stop thinking about that little girl, Lily. He started visiting them. Quietly at first, bringing flowers, then groceries, then toys. But the mother, Amara, was proud. She worked as a nurse, never asked for help. One evening, Richard showed up outside her apartment with a bag of food. She shook her head. "Mr. Langford. I don't need your pity." He looked down, ashamed. "It's not pity. It's love. I just came too late." That night, he sat on the floor of his mansion, surrounded by old photos of his son. And for the first time in years, he wept. Months later, Lily got sick. Hospital lights. Doctors rushing. Amara crying in the hallway. Richard sat beside her, clutching her hand. "She's strong," he whispered. "Just like her father." When Lily woke up after surgery, her first words were, "Grandpa, you came." That was the first time Richard smiled in years past. Every Sunday, 3 people visited that grave now, a millionaire, a mother, and a little girl who reminded him what forgiveness looked like. And one spring afternoon, Richard finally placed his final letter on the tombstone. It read, "Son, I failed you as a father, but I won't fail her as a grandfather. Your love made me human again." Amara wiped her tears and hugged him. "You gave me my family back," she whispered. He shook his head. "No, you gave me mine." The camera pans up, golden sunset behind the grave, petals falling in the breeze. Sometimes, love survives even death, it just waits for the living to listen.